Yeah, really good. Me too. Hit me for a second.
I'm recording.
We are sorry that we had some problems there for a second, so we'll be actually restarting the meeting. We've called it to order and everything. We're going to go ahead. Supervisor Nichols was in the process of talking. She's going to be rejoining us again here in a few minutes. And so I will let her go ahead and finish talking what she had to offer to the commission.
Are you waiting for me to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll try again. All right, I'm Supervisor Rebecca Nichols from 402 Elm Street in Menasha. I wanted to speak particularly to item 5 today. Discussion and action on a resolution to allow for a deviation in the Spirit Fund category and create a sunsetting innovation analyst position within the County Department of Administration. The County Department of Administration is a newly created department that has already added 2 members, staff to it over the last 2 years. And already from the ARPA funds, about $500,000 have been allocated to this office, to this department, through the Strategic Plan and Priority Budgeting Initiative and the facilities evaluation that is happening. Somewhere in the memo near the end, I believe, it states that this position would lead Winnebago County into the future. Now, I might be thick here, but I believe that's what the county executive is elected to do, to lead Winnebago County. And again, a lot of money has already been allocated to this department. The challenges that face Winnebago County aren't much different than those around us. They include childcare and housing, workforce challenges, mental health care, and let's not forget our county nursing home, which has been devastated by COVID and continues to struggle to this day. So I'd really like the commission to consider that, and hopefully in the coming weeks and months lead the conversation into how we can really get this money out to our community and working for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry about the unfortunate that we had there. So
I'm glad you got it sorted out.
Thank you. Whose hands up there next?
There's no additional hand.
There's a hand up there. That's her. Okay. All right. Yes, Supervisor Buck.
Heard in the news at the last couple of months, and I don't know, maybe County Executive Damo would have some answers to this. The $33 million that is in our bank account, correct? So why I'm bringing that up is there have been talks about some ARPA clawbacks, and just want to notify the board. Don't know where that's going to go, but just so we should be aware of there are some talks around ARPA clawbacks. Hopefully that doesn't go anywhere, but just want to make the commission aware of that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Do you want to?
Okay. Based on the clawback, from what I understand, the clawback is for ARPA funds that have not already been spent or have been encumbered, based on what we did or what the board did, and located that as general service expenditures. All of Winnebago County money ARPA money has been spent. So legally, technically, they should not be able to claw back any money from Winnebago County.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And in addition, it's been reported to the federal government. So we submitted a report that every dollar at the end of April had been,
And, yeah, we.
yeah, the report was at the end of April, and by end of March, they were already. So the Fed, by the treasuries, it's spent.
Okay, not seeing any other hands up. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes from 4/14/2023. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved, say nay. Carried. Updates on county government projects on the Spirit Fund planning document. That one.
Yeah,
Second stable.
yeah, I will take this. With the allocation of the 25% non-government up into that top end. I wanted to give an update on some recommendations on there. So we have a new planning document here for you that I want to kind of propose. Again, some haven't changed. Digital rooms is still in there. Some of these things have already been allocated. The facilities condition assessment, otherwise known as a building study. Strategic planning is already gone through radios. But potential for boardroom, which we haven't taken an action on. Outdoor recreation, I did allocate a little bit more in there for us to look at. And again, I'd be open if we want to adjust a little bit more there. That includes the walkout dam that was on there for $750,000. Airport improvements, I put that up to 1.5. That does include the $600,000 we're talking about for rapid intervention vehicle. Another thing I want to consider is in the near future, we have to take a look at the fire department or the building that we have there on the airport. So if we have a way to invest in that, to not have it on the bond for it. I think that'd be a way to reduce taxes that way. Deferred maintenance is again the 3.75 that I had put off to the side to wait until the facility condition assessment is done. Jail refit project has been done, but I wanted to keep that 251,000 place mark there. There's another project coming for the jail I believe it's one of the supervisor pods to make it go between two buildings. Is there two pods? Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So a renovation there that would help them out operationally when they're lower on staff to be able to maintain line of sight on both. So there's another project in the works there that we might sub out for. Let's see, Parkview support. I want to kind of talk to that. I have $2 million set aside there because clearly we have some issues. It's been probably my #1 concern in the last two budgets. I definitely want to take a look, and I think Lindsay, the new administrator, has some ideas that she wants to look at to make them a little bit more sound. And I think she's the right one really to lead that. Innovation Fund, the $500,000 there. Resources review efficiencies, fund strategic outcomes, and other grant funding resources. That's when we get our strategic fund or a strategic plan done. Are there some things that we want to do to implement that's going to save us money long term? What's going to make our own structure, our own implementation more effective and efficient going forward? Kind of under the philosophy of the innovation fund that the state's thinking about with shared revenue. Are there things that we can investments we can make that'll have long-term savings going forward? And then unallocated is $3,043,700. I wanted to leave that, and that is just in case of a further discussion. If we want to make 10% of this fungible, if we want to make the recommendation to maybe move 10%, so instead of 50-50, maybe 160-40, and I want to leave that flexibility for this commission to kind of drive that. So I didn't want to allocate that to anything specific, leave it out there, and of course, it'd be open to suggestions from this commission.
Wasn't that transfer $8 million?
The original amendment transferred $8 million up. So some of that we put to what I think is a good plan administratively. I think the Parkview support is a good one. I think the airport improvement could be a good one, especially when we're looking at, having to replace that fire station. And outdoor recreation, I think it gives us a little bit more flexibility there.
Consuming 5 million of the 8.
Right, correct. Now, again, these are just recommendations from that administrative piece. Any of these projects would have to be approved through this commission and ultimately by the county board.
I kind of lost track of the process. So they're government approved or government identified. So if a group comes to me and wants to find a use for the funds, I have to go to that government committee or agency or vice president, whoever runs that segment of government, ask them for help, and then they would recommend it back. You guys just don't know a flow chart to get a project to this committee for approval and then to the county board for approval.
I disagree.
So, two categories, government, county government. This category that he just briefed is administration recommended. What we'll talk about later is the documents on your desk is a request for people to submit applications for the government identified for the commission to do. So
To us, to the commission, or
to
to
the commission.
then that's not government identified project.
Yes, it is. You change the definition of that to be commission identified. So we'll talk about that in the future. This is exclusively that top category.
What's this page?
The government, county government projects are county administration recommended. We'll talk about that. There is a mechanism in the document for people who have ideas for this category to submit those as well.
Thanks.
Yep.
Even
Today, yep.
I have a question. If you note in the minutes that we just approved, discussion at our last meeting, centered around the amendment that nullified nonprofits, which was a concern of the commission. And I believe the intent there was for administration to respond. If you have any ideas how to perhaps find another route to achieve those goals. Do you have any ideas?
There is, and there are a couple ways to look at this. One of them is that we're going to talk about later is that innovation analyst. And the Spirit Fund is not the only dollars that are out there. There are millions and millions of dollars in multiple buckets out there. We just simply don't have the capacity to look or go after it. And that's one of the things we're looking at with the neighborhood improvement grant, for example. There's a grant coordinator position that I'm hoping will start for us May 15th. Creating that task force on housing. It's one of the things is there's other ARPA grants coming out. There are other neighborhood improvement grants that are going to be proposed. There are other funds out there. We need somebody to really help to go after some of those other funds that are available for the community. So, and on top of that, are there ways that we can look at some government identified projects through this commission and say, like, this is going to help our county as a whole. This is a need that I think that we have that we can fund. So there may be some, I guess, flexibility for us on that.
You see anything that would be of more of an immediate nature, such as the Christine and housing issue?
We, two things today. We'll talk about the process to accept those applications in a uniform manner so that the early bird isn't the one that gets all the worms, that we have a process that we put a document out that we can get those in review this summer and fall. That's number one. Number two is that deviation component. So I think what you're trying to get at is how do we move potentially more money down potential nonprofit projects? And that's the request for that 10% deviation. Either direction is, we thought, administration more flexible. So if We go through and the commission says, no, we should spend more on government projects. There's that deviation. Or if the commission says, no, we really need more money, in this case, about $3 million into the government identified community project sector, you would have that flexibility to request that to the board. So that's that 10% deviation will give $3 million to that second category.
It's in the resolution.
In the resolution in the next.
In the title.
Yeah, so there's the deviation, and then we'll walk through a funding opportunity form or a document today that will alert everybody to say, send in your requests for a process of review to then get to the commission. So we'll walk through that as part of the last agenda, the second to last agenda items. The discuss action and request for funding proposals in the government identified. So that we'll cover that later as well.
Paul? Okay, you're talking deviations, so I don't understand. So I'm just gonna ask my question. Are you talking 10% from the front page to the back page or what?
Either.
So that's what you're talking is 10% to go to county government projects or 10% to go to the government identified.
Right.
That's what it is. Right. Okay, I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Because some of these on the government identified projects probably could have gone in the government bucket, but we already voted on it to come out of the other bucket. So it's not like we can say, oh, we'll take the expo center and put it into this bucket because we already voted for it to come out of here. So I have a question about the airport improvement. I know that rapid intervention vehicle we had talked about. I think they came in and asked for 250 or 300 for a used or a different one. And the consensus was we wanted it to be an Oshkosh Corp truck, and whoever was the presenter said that's gonna literally double it. Do we want to revisit that, or are we still strong on it needs to be an Oshkosh Corp truck? Now, having a better feel for where the money is going to be divvied up.
I want to ask, because it's unclear for me, where does that resolution reside right now? Because it went to the county board originally with the Spirit Fund. The Spirit Fund got kicked back to this commission. Everything else kind of came back. Is that resolution back here? Where does it exist?
Yeah,
So it's here.
and the intent with those two is to have a meeting with Parks and Airport, prioritize up to a 1.5 million. So that answer is best question when he prioritizes what his projects are. He says, I have a runway project. I need that 300,000 for the runway or a hangar or something else. He can argue to you at that time. So it'll come back for discussion.
I'd hate to put half of that money into this vehicle when even it sounded like he was okay with a used or a something. I don't want to tie his hands.
And well,
Just hold on.
one second, and to go back to that, one of the reasons those two haven't come forward is I asked both directors to give me a comprehensive ask.
Okay.
Instead of doing a one-off,
Yeah.
make sure that you have a comprehensive ask.
Sure.
I know we're just completing with parks, for example, the pay stations are a very good idea. I like it, but we're just getting ready to complete an outdoor recreation plan, or a master plan to take a look at our county parks as a whole. So what are those issues and prioritize those? Is this really the priority for you? And it's the same thing with the airport. Now that we know on the horizon, we have this this firehouse that we're going to have to replace. Is that really where we want to put the money?
Yeah. Okay.
Morris?
I get the feeling some of these things we've conflated as Spirit Fund projects, and we haven't really taken them completely out of the CIP plan beforehand. It's like you've got it partly paid for by the CIP plan, and years or months before you got here or whatever, and then suddenly now we've got second half of the trucks at the airport or whatever that now we're going to do ARPA with. We got to feel the general fund out of the CIP plan beginnings of all of those projects that you want to take and put them into the Spirit Fund now. you can't conflate the two, that's what I'm saying. You really, if you're gonna call it a spirit fund, you're gonna call it, we know that we own the whole package and it's forever, okay? But still, right, we wanna continue to take stuff out of the capital improvement plan and just say, okay, we're going to do a spirit fund on this. Don't we have walk-off is involved in there as well? Walk-off improvements? Isn't that involved in the CIP plan as well? Don't we want to, if we're going to?
Partially. So the 750 is an intentional number in this planning document. There were some design things in the CIP. Remember, the CIP is a 5-year document that only funded for one. So the other 4 years are not funded. They're planned, but they're not funded.
I recognize.
And then this 750 is intentional because of the stewardship grant. The stewardship grant comes in, the county is immediately on the hook to either match it or lose it, number one. And number two, if we don't get the stewardship grant, the county's on the hook for the full 1.5.
I'm involved with that grant as it's coming to the PNF. Okay, I see all that, I hear it, and I understand it, but we got money that is laying out there in the capital improvement fund that could be used elsewhere if we're going to designate, designate the spirit fund as the sole helper of, say, one of these or all of these different programs.
I guess let me ask a clarifying question here. Are you suggesting that if we're going to bring a project here to remove it from the CIP plan, if we were going to do that?
If your intent to use spirit funds and we're rich with spirit fund money, you can pull it out of that, pull the general fund money that was previously employed there, just as we did with the generator in the generator project. Pull it out of there or donate some of the spirit fund into taking care of the CIP plan to remove the initial investments in those projects so that you can get them free and get them, I don't know if you really want to get grants going, like on the walkout, get grants going with the CIP plan money in there and then turn around and say, I'm going to put spirit money in there on top of that. We're really stirring up. Do we mind where we get the money from? I don't know if we're being honest with the whole idea of ARPA.
My philosophy on that is, yes, I do mind where we're getting the money out. The money that we bond, we have to pay interest for, that goes under debt levy, and we carry that for 10 years. What I don't want to do is that if we have projects that we just do that on top of our capital improvement plan. So every year we look at 10 million. I don't want to do 10 million, then we're going to do a $2 million of spirit fund to do a project. I'd like to consider that. That's why I'd like to keep it in the capital improvement plan when that comes up. If that's what we're going to dedicate that money for, that's still part of that 10. It's just part we're not going to bond. And that'll give tax levy relief to our citizens, which is one of the intents of spirit. So me personally, I'd rather keep it in there. Anything years 2 through 5 are not funded yet. But also if we do that, if it's a decision that we decide to make, much like one of the ones I'm suggesting here, that we don't do that on top of the 10. And I'd like to keep that. It's just, that's how it's funded. Much like when we have a resolution and we decide later whether we're going to bond for it or pay for it over the general fund. Does
I never agreed with that. But...
No, I know you haven't agreed with that, right? But you wait until the end of the year and you see what position you're in, and then you make the decision instead of making the decision right now to bond for it. And at the end of the year, we could have paid for it and we didn't, or vice versa, make the decision to pay for it. And at the end of the year, maybe we're not in the best position. We should have bonded for it. So that's really what you want, those decision points to come when it matters. So for me, on the thought process of this, when I'm looking at some of those things that are coming up in the future, this would be allocated. We can put it up to the side when that time comes. That is something we're not going to have to bond for. So that'll help us out long term on levy, and it's tricky. I mean, it's tricky when you ask me to make decisions on how we should spend the $16 million, and there isn't really a long-term plan. But we're working on this now. That's why I'm not in a hurry to be on this, because we're going to see what a facilities condition assessment's about to tell us. We might not like that report. And many other things. When a strategic plan comes, we're going to figure out what our priorities are, and that might be separate from what's on this list. And I really want to wait to hear from all the board members and us as a plan, like what is the best use of this money. $33 million is a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But in government, that can go really quick.
So you have those particular projects earmarked or marked in some way or another so that you can get back to them.
Correct. One more, I just to this commission, if you don't mind. Do we feel like I'm on the right path here as far as the administration request here? Is there any red flags on this document?
If I might, I don't have a concern, but on the unallocated, I would prefer to keep that in the $8 million group. I think there needs to be a lot more understanding and discussion about the needs of our nonprofits, and we need to address those. So to keep $8 million in there, which was your original proposal, it gives us more flexibility. Now I understand what you're saying in regard to the county projects, both the bonding side of it, debt structure, mill rate on the deck structure and all that. But and I think you do perhaps need and board a better focus on priority. So I agree with that terminology, but I'm still concerned about the number. So I would prefer to see that 8 million number back in there, at least on a temporary basis. And then the rest of this will fall into play. I notice your next meeting is scheduled for July. So I assume administration needs some time to get your budget in process and get all that going. So we have time, especially with the county project. However, if we need to do something about nonprofits because we don't have time with those. It coincides with other comments from supervisors. We need to get the money and get it out. We have to find a way to readdress that amendment to 167. And I think that would be very beneficial. Just my thoughts.
Being that it's brought up now, I know it's not on the agenda, but being that it's brought up, Mary Ann, is there any way that that can be revisited as the commission?
Well, but with reconsideration, we've got to look at the time frame, and you may be beyond that. I mean, I have to look at the dates, but I think you're beyond the time frame for reconsideration.
Correct.
When did that get? What was that? Was that in March?
Had to have it last
That's
month.
right.
I might interject, Ethan, didn't you mention something about a trailer?
Yeah, and we have that with the 10% to say, and if it's not enough, you by all means can say that's not enough. We want it all back. Or
Can you explain that would be a trailer resolution?
so what we're saying,
Trailer meaning it follows the original amendment.
right?
So you could do a trailer amendment to correct,
You do a whole new resolution to ask for the correction.
but only on the amendment.
Well, it would be a whole new resolution. It'd be a whole new resolution saying, we want the board to relook at this. Here's our new proposal.
Substitute.
No, it's a brand new resolution saying reallocating the categories.
If I might make a point here, the board took 2 votes. One was the vote to amend.
Right.
That was a separate vote from the vote to approve 167 as amended.
Yeah, I see where it goes.
So I don't know why you couldn't bring back or could have past tense a motion to reconsider the amendment because it was a separate vote.
Typically on affirmative votes that get signed by the county executive, you leave it and let it go. And you would do a resolution with a be it resolved, something to the effect of, you know, the whereas is our spirit fund got created and this happened and this happened and this happened.
Yeah.
Therefore, be it resolved that the categories of the spirit fund for planning purposes shall be boom, boom, boom. And it's a whole new document, only amending that one be it resolved that got amended. You could do it that way. You know, that's one way to do it. We proposed the 10% deviation either way.
I think that's lacking, but yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I appreciate the proposal.
yeah, so that was where it was, but yeah, you could.
And to understand, but is there a way we can bring forward a resolution just to address the amendment of 167?
Yeah, I mean, you on today's agenda, you could split the resolutions into two. So you could, because we don't number resolutions in committee, you could say, pull the deviation out, we'll do a whole new resolution and then amend that deviation and then move the innovation analyst. So you'll do two votes today. You'll do a motion to do what you're just saying, and you'll do a motion and then you'll take up the innovation coordinator.
I think I'm referring to a separate new draft resolution.
Yeah, we can do that.
Not one tied into.
So we can do that as you debate the innovation position, and you just say, hey, we want this broken out. I'll write a resolution and we'll put it on the screen, and I think it'll handle what you're talking about.
Does anyone on the commission, especially board members, have thoughts? How can I word this? My interpretation as I sit up in front as vice chair, I get the impression that there were supervisors that voted for the amendment that would certainly appreciate the opportunity to reconsider their position. Anyone disagree with me?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but the reason I voted that way is if we monkey with this and if 167 gets pulled, we're in deep trouble. Then look how long it took us just to get that passed. And that's why I voted that way. It's because I wanted to make sure 167 passed.
Totally agree.
Mr. Chair,
I just addressed the amendment.
can I make a recommendation? Can we discuss the last item on the agenda next? Then go, so the spirit fund opportunities, and for community, no. The number 6. Let's discuss number 6, go through that process, and then see if we can come up with a strategy that encompasses that. So I have a document, you have it on your desk, that'll discuss how we're going to request opportunities for nonprofits. That might change your thinking on when and how you want to go through a trailer resolution to do that. So my suggestion is, let's go to discussion and action on request for funding proposals in the government identified community project category. Let's do that next and see if that gets some of these concerns. So moving number 6 to.
I make a motion to reorganize the agenda to move number 6 up to behind number 3.
Second. It's made and seconded to move number 6 up underneath number 3. Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. We are now on number 6.
Would you indicate what table we're looking at?
One of the handouts I gave you, and I'm going to put it, I can't put it up here.
Okay, Spirit Fund project.
No, Spirit Fund project on your desk, the loose sheet. I did.
Opportunity?
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
I need one. That's not it.
So it's an action item to approve the document.
It could be.
The framework document?
Spirit Fund project funding opportunity. That's what you have in your hand, right?
Yep. Okay.
It refers to grants, matching dollars.
So this is a somewhat standard looking request for funding opportunities. I'll walk through it. You have background information on the Spirit Fund. Common that you have, and these are all decision points that you can make. This is just common request funding opportunities that the federal government and other governments put out. They put a funding opportunity document out. Typically, there's minimum and maximums because that helps folks plan on things like that. I'm just simply placeholders, 50,000 to 500,000 as maximum, with a allowability of if somebody's really profound, you could go above the 500. There's some match dollars required. Again, pretty standard. Just a placeholder, no grant can exceed 40% of the total project cost. You do allow for other government funds to be eligible for the match, but government funds should not exceed 75% of the total project unless it's a government project. The commission on your framework document passed that these projects should be one-time funds. Therefore, pilot programs, which require ongoing and future costs, will not be considered. And there's a 15 in there which I have to take out. And requests for operational dollars are also not considered. There's a sentence that they have to follow your framework document. And then because this is intended towards that government identified community project section, it says at this time, funding is unknown. The current planning document, and the best guess is these three categories: health and human services, economic development, housing initiatives, and veterans transitional housing, and those amounts are on the current planning document. Other county funding, it's quite normal to see a funding opportunity that they have to identify other county funds that they receive or are requesting through standard budget. Other funding opportunities, this is where we're trying to get at if there's a broadband grant and somebody thinks we should use Spirit Fund dollars to apply for that grant. That's also what that means. So proposals which identify other funding or grant opportunities are encouraged, even if the organization submitting is not requesting the funds. So ideas for using Spirit Fund dollars are as a required match in other grant or other funding opportunities are encouraged. We have a thing on a single audit, which again, by accepting these funds, could require organizations to have to do a single audit, and we may request prior year audits prior to giving them funds, because if there's deficiencies, we want to know that. Length of application, I have a word limit of 2,000 words, that's 4 pages, but I have an attachment, there's no limit on attachments. Submissions and questions is standard for RFP. We'll have IT create a inbox for these for questions. They'll be due June 30 or whatever date you decide. And questions will be posted to the county website, answers to questions. Review and score, which you'll have to spend some time discussing. They'll be scored. My proposal is you all appoint one citizen member to pick a team to review it with them. Up to 3 additional citizens that represent Oshkosh, 1 representing Neenah Menasha and 1 representing the rural areas. And then the additional reviewers cannot have conflicts of interest with the applications. The reason you can only have 1 citizen member review is that we'd have to have it as an open meeting, and we'd have quorum and walking quorum and other issues. We reached out to WCA, said, could we do this? And the answer was no, you cannot have all 3 citizen members in a room discussing something that could come to the commission. So 1, we could maybe get away with 2, but 1 is the legal safe recommendation. Again, this is ideas for county government projects. While this announcement for funding is intended for the community projects, if you have an idea for something that's a county government project, we should add a dog park on the south side. That's those types of things. Use the same framework and submit them just the same. Advertising of this document, we'll put it on the front page of the county website. We'll do a press release. Public Health and Human Services have email lists of community partners. We'll email it to all local governments, and we'll email it to the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, the United Ways covering both the county, the chamber, and the chambers of commerce to encourage those entities to email potential applicants. Things I have not just put in here, timeline to when you want to make decisions is not included in here, as well as there could be future contracts, requirements, and the county must comply with Chapter 59 of the state statutes. But other than that, this is kind of that to get at some of the information that we need in order to make a grant strong grant application. We need the audit. We need to know what their other funding is. We need to know their match and things like that. So this document that will guide us to figure out what is out there in the community and figure out how much money then you might need to move back down to the middle category.
I don't see the word nonprofit in here. That's suggested someplace.
I did not think that's correct. I did not include what types of entities are eligible to apply. You could certainly say nonprofits. I think the interest is, we're looking for ideas of projects. And so if I didn't put it in, but you certainly could put a definition of entities that are eligible.
I appreciate the time spent in drafting the document, but I think it might be the opportune time to address that amendment by resolution and then go from there.
Let me ask another question. Let's just take example. There was a project that came that had to do with transitional housing. Can we say that transitional housing is a priority of the government or something that we deem as a need that we need? And their funding ask that came for transitional housing, is that something that we could take a look at through this, whether it be a nonprofit or whatever it was? Would that be doable through this?
Sure, but Supervisor, I think you're getting caught up in, we need to set the category up. You don't need to. If you as a commission say to the board, we are recommending these projects and we're over budget in the community identified category, you could do that at that time. You don't need another resolution to get debated on the floor of the board to seek applications. You could overspend in that category with a new resolution because resolutions supersede the other. You do not need the order of operations. You don't need to change that 25% number. 25, yes, 25%. You do not need to change that before you plan and start trying to figure out how much over you're going to spend. So you may not get anything here. You might get a couple applications and you might be underspent. You do an amendment, you're going to go to the board, you'll cause debate. My suggestion is try to figure out what's out there, what the projects are, how much they need. And if you need to change that in July, change it in July, come back in August and September and start approving the projects that we have applications for. Because you have no idea, we don't know what we need to move back.
I don't know in total. I certainly know what the Christine Ann Center was requesting. I think they've addressed that. And I believe there might be one or two others. I just can't remember. So I think there are opportunities on the table. It's certainly not my intent to circumvent the decision of the board specific to that amendment. It is my intent to offer a resolution that would allow them to reconsider or other terms to take a look at that amendment again and still see if they still want to go that route. That puts the 25% back in that bucket, right?
Whatever percent you decide. Yep.
Yeah. So, well, based on the original format that was presented by administration, that's your $8 million. But I do feel it's important that we start getting this money out to those in need in the community. And I think it's the nonprofits have identified their needs, at least 2 or 3 of them. Will there be others? I believe, approved the form for submitting that you had drafted for submitting applications within that 25%. This suggestion you have here primarily deals with county functions, correct? Health and Human Services.
This is and Beth can correct, this is a standard type document for grants. This is
okay.
every nonprofit Christine Ann can say that a document like this is what they look at when they apply for a grant. You need this for them to apply for a grant. We don't have this. We can't just say, we're gonna give them $1 million, and then all of a sudden you have 5 projects for $1 million, and now you're debating, we think we should only get 500. Set some guidelines early, get it out, because that's how the feds do it. For competitive grants. That's how the state does it, and that's what we're suggesting. It's how United Way does it. They put some frameworks in, some flexibility, get the projects, get the funding asks in, and then determine where you want to go with that.
I don't believe Christine Ann Center is applying for a grant. They're applying for direct funding for a project. That is not a grant.
Same thing.
Yeah, the process that I see us going through would be very similar to a grant process. Here's the application. You have to meet these criteria and qualification, and then you're going to be all funders now, like at the Community Foundation or United Way, look at everything, prioritize what fits what, and then determine. So essentially it's a grant process.
The document that you had filled out, Tom, that was a different.
I think that's a good starting, yeah.
We applied for a grant.
That, correct.
Yeah.
It was money that wouldn't be paid back for. We didn't really, I always want to keep things really simple, and it's a pretty complicated document. I guess it has to be for a certain.
This helps
regulatory.
vet out also some, and I do like the minimum, because do we really want $550 grant? This will help streamline. It'll be major projects. It'll be one-time projects. And I see what you're saying, Chuck, and I appreciate it. But I think it's more powerful to go back to the supervisor, the board, to say, hey, here is the need in the community from the nonprofits. We have these 8 projects. Here's a little synopsis of blah, blah, blah. Here's what it's going to do. So then supervisor's aunt who needs help here. Well, this project is going to help your aunt with her food, and this project is going to help your neighbor with their blah, blah, blah. So I think maybe coming back and saying, like, just leaving that 50-50 alone for now, because it looks like this is coming out of that second half, right?
That's the intention.
Essentially,
Yep.
kind of square that. So I think it might be easier to go back and say, here's the need, and maybe the need is greater than, or it's not. And then we could always do an amendment at that time to say, hey, we want to just pull this all out to do that. But it is hard without knowing what the need exactly is from everybody.
The amendment would have to come first, because if you brought something forward to the county board floor and the supervisors look and say, well, that's a nonprofit. We've already passed a resolution not
Would they
to support
I
nonprofit.
mean, it would follow
Yes.
the second half. Do you think so?
So it's going to get into an issue of interpretation.
Well, I have a question for the Corporation Council. The amendment simply got rid of the bottom 25%, right?
Put it into the top, yes,
Did
government.
the amendment bar us from still having government identified projects that are with nonprofits? I don't believe it did.
It said government identified projects and government identified community projects.
Correct.
So
The only thing that amendment did was got rid of the
nonprofit category.
nonprofit, non-government,
Non-government.
right. It did not ban us from still,
I don't believe it yet. I don't
because we
believe
would
it.
have to cancel a whole bunch of contracts that we have with Human Services right now, if that were the case.
Because there was even the one that talked about what we're considering. I can't find it. We made a definition of what government identified projects and county government projects were, and that was all approved. So
I do not believe this bans us from still identifying a nonprofit as a
For the
county identified project.
Thank you. This, maybe this is a question for Ethan. Is the intention of this then to, I'm just gonna use United Way, that they would apply for a grant through Health and Human Services under that $2.5 million increment there, and then, the board doesn't have approval over that. And I get what I think I get what Supervisor Barry was getting at over there, that I think there's going to be some that think that, you know, this is just another way to give money to the nonprofits. And so I think we have to be careful about that. So I don't know if that was the intent.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow your planning document, and I'm trying to follow what happened when we created the Spirit Fund. So I'm trying to put the old stuff with the new stuff. The word nonprofit did not appear in the category that was cut. It appeared in your planning document. So you would put $6 million-ish aside for nonprofits, in addition to any nonprofit or entity that applied for the government partnership category, which is what we still have. So what I think the philosophy is if we're going to give $6 million to nonprofit, I'd rather cut the whole non-governmental category and move it. So, you know, 25%, you all never said we want 25% just for nonprofits. You cut that amendment also cut broadband. It also cut economic development. It also cut, I think, tourism. So it wasn't just nonprofits that got cut out of that category. And so there wasn't a prohibition on we shall not spend any Spirit Fund money on nonprofits. What it did is it just moved the philosophy, which I think was set on the floor of the board, is we need to take care of our house first. We should stop borrowing and spend Spirit Funds on CIP type projects instead. That's I think the intent of the amendment. And so Supervisor Buck, you're exactly right. The reason those three categories are in there is that's just what's left from your planning document that you adopted last fall. So if you want to change those and say, here's the categories we're looking for applications, I don't care. I'm just following. That's where those came from. And I have also in here that it's unknown how much funding is available, which is uncommon for a funding opportunity. But because of the kind of what's up in the air on where your desire is to fund nonprofits. And so, you know, I see where you're coming from. If you give $1 million or whatever, over $1 million to Christine Ann, that's going to take half of the health and human services that you planned for. And so I see what you're trying to do. But without seeing who's ready to accept money, because somebody can come to a meeting and say, we need money for this. Sounds really good. We get an application that's 50 words. We look at their audit, they have deficiencies. We kick them out. So we need to do that process first to say, how strong is their application? How ready are they for the funds? And then maybe look at some audits to see if they're ready to accept the funds, because you could get somebody to come here that's really well prepared, really well spoken. And then we look into their books and we're like, the county shouldn't be giving that entity money for this reason or that reason. So getting a narrative of less than 4 pages of what's the project with some attachments would be really helpful, I think, in starting to plan for what an amendment could look like and how much more out of that top category you need to bring down.
Yeah.
Doc, did you have something?
You want to see my minutes? We have the minutes for the last meeting in March.
Of this commission?
67.
No, I do not.
This is meeting.
No.
So we can, the turnaround time to get this out to the local organizations, and I mean, we could do a 30-day turnaround time. Something like this it's not operations, it's very simple, it's a one-time spend. So it would be a fairly simple application for those. I mean, it wouldn't be too stressful for those organizations to put together this grant. So we could have a short turnaround time. If we want to kind of table this, send this out, see what the need is, and then come back to the next, well, maybe the July meeting to determine, here's all the applications, here's everybody who qualifies, here's how much is out there, and ask.
Sure. My follow-up question for Ethan. Let me use the Christine Ann Center I mentioned several times as an example. if they chose to apply for this grant funding, which one of the three categories would they apply through or to?
I have it broad. I think they would have to make in their application a defense of, we think we are health and human services, but also housing. And so that's where the commission could start saying, once we recommend, these are the applications we should, here's where we're planning on going. This is intended to be all encompassing. I am not, normally you would see a funding opportunity that we only have 2.5 million for health and human services. We only have 6.1 for housing and economic development. It's not written that way. So we would probably not score on the basis of, do they fit one of these categories? We would score on the basis of, does it make sense? Are they ready to receive the funding? Does it appear like they're ready? Did they get their information in? That's right. We could do this quickly. I'm suggesting June 30 for two reasons. One, I know it's only May 3rd. We're going to get a ton of questions, and we're going to have to put an FAQ up, and we're going to have to make sure the chambers are getting it out. We have a lot of weekly newspapers in this county, so we're going to need them to do articles. So my suggestion is get it out. We can get it out within, if you approve it today, we'll get it out next week. The latest, we'll get it in the newspapers. We'll get it emailed out. We'll start getting questions rolling in. And then by June 1, hopefully that process is over. They're writing in the full month of June. So that's why I picked June 30. Then we'll analyze and score and put the requests in. You'll have a meeting in July. And I think at that meeting in July, probably won't be ready yet to pick projects, but you'll be ready to know, we really need, here's how much we're going to fund these types of projects. So we could have that analysis of not what projects, but how much and how we're going to do that. So we could get the funding request in July, August, or September. Here's the actual projects, and then out the door by the end of the year.
This document indicates $9 million, roughly.
Yep, that's what's in the middle category.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the intention then, Ethan, that the county team would vet some of these grant applicants? Okay, here's their financial background, and then when that work is done, then the, who the team would see deem, fit, then here's the grant opportunity, we vetted X, Y, Z. Is that the intent?
Yeah, I think the first round would be, you would appoint a citizen member who would appoint, with the consent of the chair, 3 others. They would review kind of conceptually which ones we want to move forward. Then we would figure out internally, how do we ensure before we start offering money, compliance, what's compliance look like, go back to them and say, could you comply with this agreement? They may say, no way. They may say, yep. And then we come back to this commission.
And then
we would not propose, sorry, I didn't catch up. We would not propose that organization's not ready to receive $1 million grant.
No, I think that's time well spent. And then after that would be approved by the commission and grantee by grantee approved by the county board, or as a package?
I would think we would want to go en masse like we did the CIP.
Okay, I was gonna, yeah, okay. I was gonna, I think after some of the presentations yesterday, I think the board would have a hard time in not approving some of the folks that came in and talked about their programs last night. So. That's right.
I would like to make a motion to get this on the table officially. So I'd like to make a motion to put, is there a resolution that goes with this?
This is not a resolution. This is just a motion that you want this out.
Right. I'd like to make a motion to officially put this on the table so we can continue. So a motion to discuss action on request for funding proposal in the government identified community projects category.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Quick question on the applicants. What part of it is public information and public documentation? Like, would all the applications be public disclosure, or is that not until the private people move it up to this level?
Typically a government would not release until the process is over. So they would, eventually they would all be public record, but we typically, well, an RFP process is live. We do not release public. There's a standard on how to release RFPs and things like that. So not until the decision has been made, would they be eligible to be put out? That's the other reason why we don't want the 3, because then it's a public meeting and then we got a closed session and you could be talking about people frankly. And so that's why our suggestion is one of you citizens, members is going to lead this.
Or any citizen.
Well, the suggestion right now is a citizen member with staff support, finding 3 other citizens to say, we think this is where we need to go. But yeah, you could not, on July 1st, submit a request for all the other applicants because it's an open RFP process. We don't typically do, we wouldn't release those typically in that circumstance. So, but they would be shortly thereafter releasable, potentially with some redaction if there's sensitive information or things like that. Typically not.
Why couldn't it be the 3 members, because they are not the quorum?
They are, a quorum is 5 and you have it, you then have a majority of a quorum. So if 4 of you don't show up, 5 of you can vote on an item, they can, 3 of them can pass everything. So that's why you can't have 3.
That was my original question. Why can't we just? So, good thought.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion?
Are we talking about section by section?
Yeah,
That's what.
I would suggest if you have concerns with any of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So I'd say let's just go down minimum and maximum. The background looks great. Minimum and maximum, does that feel? So I would say, do we want maximum? So United Way has the 3 focus areas. We have many people apply for 2 focus areas. So is the maximum per focus area or total? So would you say if somebody comes in and says, hey, we need 500,000 out of Health and Human Service and 500 out of Housing Initiative, is that okay? Or do we want to, can people blend their ask? And I would almost say leave it as vague as possible, and then we can determine.
You could change the word grant to project award, a minimum project award, a maximum project award.
Yeah, is there any legality with calling it a grant or any, I don't know, Marianne?
No,
Nothing with.
no, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Other than, yeah.
I use project is just later, so I think using the word project and funding opportunities rather than grant might alleviate some of those concerns. It would make it more vague.
This allows somebody to have more than a $500,000 ask.
Right. And the goal would be if you're going over the maximum, you really need to defend that. That's the idea there, that you're not precluded from approving $5 million. They just need to have a section that is really, really clear why they want to go over $500,000.
Any other discussion?
You got any other issues on that?
For match dollars, do we want it? So the way this is in my brain, reading it as if it were a government grant, that's dollar for dollar. So if somebody's asking for $1 million, they've got to come up with $1 million on their own for the project. Is that just to make sure everybody understands? Like, are we good with that?
Yeah, that's just that is out of the clouds. That's where we want to put it.
So this is saying dollar for dollar grant, but it can't be more than 40% of the total project.
Yeah. So whatever. So this grant or the Spirit Award will not be. It's $1 million project. 400,000 would be funded by the Spirit Fund. 600,000 other. You want to make it 50-50, you can. The other thing is total government money. I did 75, just because I think a lot of board members would like to see private donors. Yeah. So my thinking was I pulled it out of the cloud, but my thinking was also that the majority of the funding is not Spirit funded. That was my 45, 50. No opinion other than it was just a number.
Sure. Yes, sir. To your point, you're thinking it should be 50-50. Is that what you're suggesting?
Not necessarily. I'm just, that's how I would think that's how most of the programs would read it, a matching. When I hear matching funds, it means it's a dollar for dollar match.
Yeah. Which I agree with.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's better to amend that to 50%. Or should they make the amendment?
Second.
Meeting seconded to go instead of 40 to go to 50-50 matching grants.
Wait. Are you saying 50? Oh, wait, are you saying dollar for dollar? Or are you talking about,
No grant
The award.
40.
okay, so that the award may not exceed 50% of the project? Okay.
Any other discussion?
The amendment.
Any other discussion? That amendment. Hearing any other discussion?
I have questions, sorry,
It's on the amendment now.
just on this, right?
On the amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, no, go ahead.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Not hearing any, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Beth.
Do we want to put the project, wait, all requested, I'm trying to quick read. Do we want a timeline on when the project is completed? Like we want to make sure in the spirit of ARPA, where it's completed by the end of 26, like the whole allocated and spent?
It doesn't have to.
I know it doesn't have to. I'm just,
Well, just, you can make any date you want. You're gonna make it a
Yeah.
2-year run, or
do we want? That's my question. Do we want to we want to make sure this project is done by?
I like that idea.
Because I could see people saying, hey, I want to buy a building, but I'm not quite there yet, but I'm gonna someday, so can we get the money and we're gonna put it to buy the building, and it sits there, now it's a bank, and it sits there for 10 years, earns interest, but.
What do you think, Paul? What do you think about that?
Timeline.
Because we're gonna sit on that money until there's an invoice, right?
It's good to have a timeline, but I think that's also going to come out when you vet it. That they don't have a proposal or they don't have something in the hopper, then you don't want to consider it. But having a timeline makes them if you have no timeline, people may just apply and don't have something in the hopper. Then we gotta go through a bunch of projects that are not ready to go.
Yeah.
That's
Or
just
we could
2
at
years
least
or
add
3 years.
in
I don't
the,
know with this industry.
yeah, we could add in the application, like what is the end date or when will the proposed project be finished? So
Check
we
the
have
box.
some, right?
check the box, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year.
So, my suggestion then would be adding a section on project completion. And then I would just say something vague like it's intended that all projects are completed by December 31 of 2026.
Make that motion.
Second. Motion made and seconded to add that to December 2026. Did you say? Yes. Okay. Any discussion on that amendment? Discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carries. Anything else?
And then is this going to be a reimbursement grant or is it, here's the money, do your thing, or do we want, here's my invoice, now we need the money? Because most grants, you write the grant, they send you the check, they assume you're gonna do, and then there's a report later to show and prove, or a lot of the federal grants are reimbursements.
Yes.
Here's my timesheets of all my staff, now I need reimbursement for their funding.
Ask finance director.
Welcome to your new position.
The NIF grant has both built in, with the majority, well, I guess from my point of view, I would prefer that they have spent the money and then they get reimbursed. But then again, you
Or it's at least.
potentially would knock out any, like that would have knocked out day by day, or that would have knocked out solutions recovery 10, 12 years ago. They wouldn't have had a chance at it. So they wouldn't be here now if we made them pay money up front without the possibility of an advance. So I think you kind of want to say preferably
Yeah.
that it's reimbursable, but with enough, I guess, reasoning, there could be an advance.
So then
So,
I don't know the criteria.
my suggestion would be cash flow. They'll have to have a section on how they're gonna cash flow the project. Because that's where Solutions and they got in trouble. They didn't have the cash to do it that way.
Yeah.
So we'll just, that my suggestion would just be add a section on cash flow. That the applicant or the project shall have some narrative on anticipated cash flow.
Well, I'm used to funding an invoice and doing a joint check when I pay an invoice for any construction project.
yep,
So
that,
I don't have this person taking the money and then paying that person. I do it to both people.
Mhm.
Then that protects me on an audit basis.
Mhm.
So, I don't know how you do, and even for payroll, you could, but we're not.
No,
I think
we're not funding.
we just want to know, what are they gonna pick? Are they gonna pick they need an advance, or are they gonna pick a reimbursement? That's all we really need to know in the application. So they just need to. That's why my suggestion is
they
just,
have financials already set up, or,
they just have to have a section on cash flow. They're gonna say, hey, our plan is to do a building loan, then we know they don't have the cash.
Right.
They say our plan is to, we'll seek reimbursement, then we know they have the cash. That's all we're trying, I think, to get at, Paul.
A lot of them have to get building loans to begin with, just because they don't have the cash.
Right.
And then we get reimbursed for rent. So, I mean, I don't know if I want to advance somebody money for a building. If they don't have enough credit to get it from the bank, I'm not gonna be their bank. So I mean, the bank, I would use the bank as vetting out in that case. They have the ability more than we do to find that out, so they can get a bank loan for a building. We don't want to touch them. But it's other cases where in advance of, I mean, I'm not talking a half, I'm talking maybe a split of, you have 200 that you have to invest, I can give you 100 to go with that, so now for 300, you can buy that building. And then you pay me back that 100, you know, it's not like advancing for the whole project. I think that we would be messed up. Because I mean, Solutions Recovery right now is asking for an advance on the NIM. They haven't done it yet.
Build that into the grant though. I mean, that's into the application.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Not hearing any, we're gonna have a roll call on this. Anybody saying no afterward?
I'm done.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Roll call.
Now, this is sections on this.
This is on, we're doing the draft, on the draft. Amendments are already voted on it.
On the document as amended.
Okay. Okay.
Egan,
Yes.
Demo,
Yes.
Buck,
Aye.
Cox,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Portrait,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Oswald.
Missing. That's unanimous. Yes, sir.
I've never done one of these before, but I go to you guys because you've done it all. How do you set expectations up that they see it and they don't realize everything they're gonna have to go through? They just assume I give the application, I get the money. So how do you preface some of this in expectations? And I think we're hopeful that that's the way it's gonna come in and get vetted, and then you're gonna look at it. You might want to have some kind of a contact name, and see the committee has a question about it. You want to get back to you, make an appointment and call you or bring you in or whatever. But you know, this is a one-off thing, right? I mean, it's a standard that everybody uses. A lot of people think they know without reading it. And then all of a sudden they find out there are hoops, which there should be for the way it's set up. So I would encourage us, and again, the people that do it most, is how do you handle expectations up front, so you're not making a lot of people get really excited and then.
I think, is that officially on the record? I think this and the application are the, I mean, this is pretty, but very clear. I think that fulfills it. And the application, there are a couple things that I think we add to it. But then I think it's easy to tell who knows what they're doing. And if there's a grant writer or there's a nonprofit that isn't reading through this, then we don't want to fund it. So they should be you should be reading. This is why you have grant writers, because the directors don't have time to move through the 87 pages of this kind of stuff. So, and then we'll ask who's the director. We can do some background checks on the director. How long have they been there? And some of those questions are important too. So yeah, those are all the things that we look at when we're looking.
Right, Scott?
What we did with the neighborhood investment grant was we tied an amendment to it. The amendment was that we would have individual parties of the people involved come and make a presentation at the end of 3 months or 6 months or once a month or however you want to do it. It could be a verbal or a written presentation of some sort or another. So then you have some idea of where they're going with it, how they're falling into problems, the sewer doesn't work right or whatever, you know. And they're able to tell that in advance a little bit before the thing goes south. You know?
And then the board at least now feels a little more vested because they can watch the progress and they get, yeah.
But I think that if you can back this thing up with need to have it, you know, verified in some way of the condition of whatever you're granting for property or the, you know, the land that you're buying or the waterfall you're making or whatever. Once you get the verification going once a month or once every, however long the project is going to go, you can have it in writing. You can have them do a page, whatever, summary of what's going on and have it turned in. However.
And that, like Ethan talked about, he doesn't have quite what the reporting structure will be, but that's it. Most grants have, except for a lot of the late federal grants, have like PPP. Here, apply for this, and we're not going to tell you how to report on it. We will tell the programs how to report on it. And I think definitely that there should be follow-up reports.
Yeah.
And it could be a midway, what's going on, what challenges, what struggles are you having, and then a final report when the project is complete. And I guarantee if it's going to nonprofits, every nonprofit would welcome 36 supervisors to come on in and do a tour and look at the thing that you funded. Right. So, yeah.
Paul? Just on that is, I mean, depending on, normally for the most part, I'm 72 or less. They're gonna have to give me they're gonna have to give invoices to get the money. So for the most part, as they progress, they get money on the project. Very rarely, in my opinion, they're gonna get advance for that project. So that's, as the project is being done, they're going to have to report on it and give that probably. On the presentations, I guess to put in possibly, yeah, they may have to do a report on it for the board. But I don't know if you want to have, if they're all $50,000 projects, have 16 different presentations for the board, or just pick certain ones that you want to highlight. Then this commission can decide on that, I would think.
Oh, if it's a written report, couldn't they all go to the board?
Right.
There you go.
Right, yes, a written report, definitely, or an update from me on.
Go ahead, Paul, finish up.
Sure.
No, go ahead, go ahead. No, you're all right.
It was just, I could also give, if I'm the one who's under responsible for
That's true.
maintaining and making sure they have invoices, I can always give an update for meetings on.
Supervisor Cox.
I thought that if, depending on how these are presented, it comes to the committee here, or they come through P&M. You know, however you decide you want to deal with this, they can also come back to P&M, give a small report or written something, summary.
Question now that we passed this, do we have to nominate and appoint one of the citizen members?
Yes, if you passed it with a majority vote. The difficulty is all of your citizen members sit on boards of nonprofits, potentially. The only conflict of interest that I've written into there was the 3 additional reviewers. So if your citizen member has a conflict that's probable, they would recuse themselves, or, you know, basically we'd have to figure out how to disclose that. But the other 3, the person from Neenah Menasha, the person from rural areas, the person from Oshkosh, they could not be tied to any application. So 3 of the 4 will have a conflict. They cannot have a conflict. Citizen member, based on who you've appointed, you have a board member of the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, you have the executive director of United Way, and you have Tom Belter, who's in everything. Just kidding. Member of the chamber, on some chamber boards. So it's plausible you have that conflict. So we know that they'll have to disclose it. So that's why we have the additional 3 reviewers. So you would nominate one of those 3 people to assist us in sifting. They're probably going to be more of an organizer and helping with that than an actual decision maker. Again, but then you all have the ultimate authority over that anyway. So we just don't want 4 people who have all conflicts. We wanted.
But if there was a conflict and they recuse themselves, one of those 3 would in fact be the one who would be shepherding it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how you would do it. But anyways, the point is we expect a conflict potential with the citizen member, but we didn't write it in that couldn't exist. They would just disclose it to you saying, FYI, I'm
recusing myself
from the ARPA vote, the commission vote, or whatever it is.
And that's how we do it with United Way. So we have the community investment team, and if one of the team members is a board member of one of the presenting, they just, I'm not going to vote, and they just step back and kind of stay quiet. So
I was thinking more of excusing myself.
Oh, you feel me like that? You
The whole process.
Tim's not here. We could just vote him in.
So I wrote this in anticipating you probably want Beth or somebody like that. So we can handle that. If it's Beth, she's involved in so many funding projects, we could handle.
I'd like to nominate Beth.
Second.
Made and second to nominate Beth Oswald to be chairman of the committee. Anyone else? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Congratulations, Beth. Big paying job.
Yeah.
You got lucky there.
Staff now?
Okay, I think we've got everything done on that. We'll go back up to number 4, discussion possible action, the resolution approving $150,000 from Spirit Fund to be used to improve meeting room, virtual capabilities, and other technology upgrades to support higher quality streaming and paperless agenda packet options.
All right,
I move to approve,
a second.
That's the question.
Yes, somebody might not know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So.
Is that this board approved allocation on this schedule?
That was not approved.
Oh, it's italicized because it's a pending resolution.
Yeah, that has not been approved. That was just on my.
Yeah.
It's on all of yours. It's on all of yours.
Yeah.
No, it's on the one that got mailed. That one is italicized because it's not actually board approved. Yes.
It's not, yep.
Making sure it wasn't approved by the board before it was approved by that commission.
Correct. This is not something where the funding has been approved.
Any discussion of this? Yes.
Is that enough money?
Go ahead. We just did Oshkosh Human Services and Nita Human Services, so those two are going to be out. You know, we think we're not going to be able to do every room, so you know, but we think it's a good start for us to start upgrading some rooms. This one's done, so that we don't need to redo this room. The camera's behind me.
And then the microphone.
The microphone.
You got
right there.
speakers and mics up here.
Yeah, so some rooms are done.
Okay.
Yeah, some rooms are done, some rooms are not. Plausible, it's not enough, but we think it's a good start.
Go ahead, Porter.
I have a question. Is that done with our people or contractor?
Both.
Because our people don't charge for it, but a contractor will, so that'll up it, right? And not only that, if our people do it, we don't know when it's gonna get
The
done.
problem is we don't have complete expertise with AV and things like that. So the best thing is to, it's possible that our people can do some installation, but we need to have some type of consultant kind of outlay it. But
Did Mike buy into this already?
what did you say?
Did Mike buy into this already?
In collar?
I think
Any
He's the one.
facilities person, did he buy into this?
We haven't used facilities for any of these installs in the past. We've used our IT department.
What I found in the past is somebody might go and say, no problem, our facilities will take care of it. Then I go talk to the facilities guy, he doesn't know anything about it, he doesn't have time to do it for 3 years.
Yeah, no, our plan would not be to have facilities do the project. There might be things that they have to do, prepare and things like that. But the plan is
To get it done.
have a firm, plan it, standardize.
They're still changing out lights out at the fairgrounds yet, years old.
We're required to have the virtual meetings, correct?
Yeah.
This meeting almost didn't happen today because
Would that solve today's problem or help us?
Yes, because we would, yes.
More options in the county, places to go.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Other discussion? Not hearing any, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Item 5, discussion possible action on resolution to allow deviation in spirit fund category request for innovation and creating a sunsetting innovation analysis position within the County Department of Administration. Demo.
Well, I'll make a motion to bring this forward for discussion purposes. We'll get there, Chuck.
I'll second the motion, get it on the floor.
All right.
Let's need a second discussion.
How much money?
All right, there has been some talk about what to do with the interest in the spirit fund, the money that we're accruing to on interest. And one of the things when we're looking at where we are administratively, and some of the balls that we're dropping and some of the other money that's out there that we don't have the capacity to go after get. Some of the struggles that finance has had getting some of the money for the neighborhood improvement grant out, trying to figure out what are the statutes to help facilitate this commission, to help our townships who have part-time clerks that don't have the ability to go after some of these other ARPA dollars that are out there to help support them. The innovation analyst is one of those that can be just for that. What are the other monies that we have? Now, this is not something that I think we need long-term, something that can prove itself over 3 years of how do we get better long range in the county. For instance, what is the best way to go after grants in this county? Now, many people have talked about a grant writer position. Do we just put a grant writer in finance? What is the best way to go after that? How do you study that? And from what I hear, is a grant writer, one singular grant writer wouldn't work. Because the expertise it takes to write for a grant for land and water conservation versus the expertise it takes to write for a grant for health or human services versus the expertise it takes to write for a grant for the sheriff's department are vastly different. And one person can't do that. So what is a system that we need to look at to make sure that that is optimal? So for 3 years, based off the interest alone of the Spirit Fund dollars, we can fund that innovation analytic manager to look at all these projects. One of the reasons that I attached in the memo is the 2007 resolution was not to show something that came out of a resolution in the past. It was in 2007, we had a recommendation for administration to take a look at all of these things. We didn't have the capacity, I don't know if it was capacity or unwillingness to actually do some of these things. There are some really good suggestions made in that 2007 resolution that administration just sat on. We didn't go after any of it, and maybe I would like to put a little grace in there because it's the amount of movement we've done in the last 2 years has really stressed out where we're at, and we're all at capacity. I know Supervisor Nichols talked about we added another position between the administrator and the county exec this year, admin 4. We haven't had time to interview for that position. It still is vacant right now. Now we've had 2 applications or 2 applicants that I think are overqualified. But we really haven't had the time to focus on some of this stuff. And that's really, I want to do better of making sure that we are actually doing the best that we can and to get the townships and the municipalities that don't necessarily have the capacity to help them out. There are 3 big funds out there right now. There are more ARPA dollars out there. The state talked about having another neighborhood improvement grant come through. We don't have the capacity to right after that again like we did the first time. There are infrastructure monies coming out, mainly for the towns that would benefit them for a lot of roads and a lot of the, what do you call it? It's not necessarily bridge, culvert. Bridge aid, right?
Yeah.
Their clerks, there's not full-time people in the towns to help them to write for that. The Inflation Reduction Act has money everywhere with programs coming through that we don't have the opportunity to go after. One example in the last month would be the B grant, which helps for broadband through the county. It was 20 grand. GoEDC came to us and said, hey, we should really go after this. I don't have the time. We don't have the time. Can you write for this? Well, maybe I can write for it. We wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for them letting us know. And there's all kinds of these grants coming out right now that we are dropping for our citizens because we don't have the capacity. Do I think this position is going to be needed over 3 years? I don't know. But I have 3 years to pay itself based off the interest of this. And I guess to respond to one thing, because I keep hearing this, isn't this what we elected the county executive to do? There is a difference between a county administrator and a county executive. My job is not to be the chief administrator of the county. My job is to oversee operations, to make sure that our, and I don't mean this in a negative way, bureaucrats are getting their job done. Much like in Umbro, it's not your job to run the school. It's your job to make sure Jay Jones is doing a good job. You know, it's my job to make sure that all of our people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's also my job to fight for them when they say they need resources. So I might be going a little long-winded here. So I'll just, I guess, open myself up for questions.
Thank you. I don't know if I have one question and comment. Let me address the first question. If I add up all the numbers, 64,000, 1,500 for software, $365,000 included here. That is from the interest proceeds. So I assume this person would have an annual salary of somewhere around 110, 120,000 a year. Is that the anticipation?
Well, with benefits, I think it's about 74 or something like that.
174.
No, 74,000 wage plus benefits. I think it might even be less than that.
If you're looking for an appropriation of about 430,000.
Correct. No. Yes.
In total.
Yes.
So that was probably a little more than you need then, right?
It is a little more. I did a multiplier with Mark Hobick scored it. So
Yeah.
he got the resolution, he scored it. He gave me the numbers, and then we did a growth factor of 5% on all labor and wages. So I didn't just do a 5% wage. I took the whole thing and they compounded it 5%. So yeah, we're probably 20,000, 10,000, a little over, but we don't know where the rest is going to go. Health insurance, some of those other fringes could certainly eat some of that throughout the year. So that's how it's calculated. Mark Hobick graded it, annualized it, we chopped it in half for this year, and then we did a growth factor of 5% for 3 additional years.
Okay, thank you. Now, this person would be on the, an employee of the county
The 3 years.
for 3 years. Okay, so, though, I'm, really concerned about this, but in general, I'm concerned about the process. If this person is going to be an employee of the county, should this not go through PNF before it gets to us, or the other way around? Is it personnel and finance because they're not on the resolution? And then approving.
I have no objections to that.
Okay, then I'll move to refer to PNF.
Well, typically you would committee of jurisdiction wouldn't take a look at it. And it would refer to PNF. So if it's the committee's pleasure to send it to PNF, you should approve it with that contingency. You should not refer it because it'll come back, because the ARPA commission is the only one that can forward resolutions to county board. So
Okay.
if you, I mean, part of this issue too is you just approved an application of $9 million. Somebody's got to manage that. You've approved $3 million to towns. You've approved $3 million to land and water. This is a lot of money to get out in a short period of time. And so that is our hope, is we can use some additional folks to do the non-day-to-day stuff in this as well. So if the commission's pleasure is to send it to PNF, we can do that June, and it gets forward in June. But if you were to refer it without approving it, you're coming back in July and delaying it, and you know, some of these things could get delayed.
How would you prefer me to do that, Mr. Chairman?
However you would like, but if this, they want to take the money out of here, I would say it's got to get approved here and then go to that committee. That's my, however you would like to make that motion. But I do agree that it has to go to that committee sometime.
Their technical job description, is that, seems like a lot of things you want them to do, but I don't know what, if I was applying for this job, what I was like going to do.
There is, and that's one thing, when HR, job descriptions aren't normally something that we want to bring to committees. I did, the one time for a couple assistants or positions that I wanted to for myself, but technically it's the job of administration.
My second question, when I would loan money to a company to do something new, I would have a 1 to 2 to 3 year pro forma about the revenue, the expense, payback, and making sense of my bank investment into that company that's giving them $500,000 loan. So have you done a pro forma for this?
Yeah, I mean,
And certainly there are millions of dollars worth of grant opportunities.
it will be very easy for this position to pay for itself multiple times over within the first year.
So you could do something like that, because I'm guessing you'll have a fair presentation to the county board with some difficulty, so you might want to have that behind you.
Absolutely.
Follow-up question. I thought of two things. You mentioned the towns. Are you saying that the towns could request this new position with address their grant needs?
Yeah,
You got 15 towns.
correct.
Okay, does that apply to villages? Cities, probably not. We're referring to just towns because they don't have that
Yeah.
capability.
Correct.
Well, that's, I'm an advocate for town government, so that's a plus, right?
Well, and right now we look at Bob Dable to do some of that stuff for him, and that's hard, or even East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and it's hard for them.
Yeah.
Where's
yeah.
that personal touch that we have? Jenny Sunlighter works for the county, but she's also a county clerk or a town clerk.
Conflict, yeah.
And she has the benefit of coming over and asking us, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Right? Well, if she is, and she works for the county, you're asking the other ones that do. How do we do a better job of serving the people that need it right now? And we are dropping just tons of.
Like I say, I'm skeptical of adding new positions. But that certainly is a plus from my point of view. But more to the point, Ethan, we approved $3 million for the town. Are we saying now that this person, we have to wait for the town to get their money until this person is hired and reviews their?
No.
Because all the town chairmen want to know where the money is.
Yeah, no, it certainly, we're not waiting for this position. It's not gonna hold up the money.
Okay.
But I can tell you, we have neighborhood improvement. We have another, there's a ton of money that we're trying to get out with the same number of people that we do for our day-to-day operations. We have added nobody to assist with ARPA. So that any of the money that you've added, we didn't add anybody for neighborhood improvement until the grant coordinator. We did add the program in human services, but we've added no positions to cover this 9 million that we're going to get applications for. We've added nobody for the 3 million for towns. That was the point. So we're going to do our best.
You had started.
Yeah, we're going to do our best to get it out. But my point is,
I don't want it held up.
no, we're not holding it up. But my point is, it could take us a week or two because vacations and other things. There's only 3 of us really working on some of these things, and so we're trying to get them out.
You can't do it. You cannot put one person in there and do everything you talked about doing right now without running just like we do with the highway department. They'll take everything on. They may not get it done this year. Literally cannot pull off what you're doing without a job description saying what they're going to do and the support they're going to need. Hey, that's the bottom line. I don't even know anything about it. I'm going to say you can't.
You rephrase it. What can I do?
One person cannot handle the workload. The job description that you have, if you read it and say it, you've got town making applications, you've got people coming in, you've got all sorts of things going on, and the support is there. You're still putting one person in a position that needs, in essence, a department to handle everything in a timely fashion.
First of all, there is no way I'm going to get more than one, right? And second of all, I think you're underestimating the team that we have in the 4th floor of the county. I see what our finance team is doing. I see what my colleague's doing. I see what Ethan's getting done, and we are moving and shaking.
And you can do it. You can keep on doing it without that one person.
Well, you got an opinion on that?
I'm just saying,
I haven't-
you can't expect one person to come in and make a change. It's got to be a whole setup of people to support that person just to handle all the work coming in.
Every other county I talk to, they have cabinets. I have a shelf, but my shelf is performing. That shelf, the core group that we have, Paul, is doing an awesome job. Mike Collard is doing an awesome job. Ethan is doing an awesome job. Our new financial analyst that you hired, she is doing an awesome job. And I have all these people that came from the private sector looking at how we do things, asking why. Thank you for asking why. Give me those questions why, because none of it seems to make sense. And now we're pushing all this stuff and we're doing it. We have priority-based budgeting coming. We're going to actually be able to look at our programs, see exactly what we're doing in the county, how they tie to each other. We're getting that done. We have a lot of things that we have been getting done that are great, and we're all this is saying, listen, for the next 3 years, I think we only need one, and I think our team is capable of that, and I don't want to say that they can't do it because I've already seen what they've done in action. Mary Ann, you've seen it too. I mean, we're accomplishing a lot of things, recodification on top of that. So many things that I see them doing. I see them work as a team, and I call it murderer's row. When Paul comes out of his office and he grabs Mike, and Mike is sitting there talking with Ethan and me and the ideas and how we're going to divide and conquer and get this stuff done, and we come up with a game plan. It's amazing. It's amazing to watch them work. I really believe one more is enough to get this done.
Show me your plan for that. How many grants are you going to have done per year? Sure. How many towns are going to, because once the word gets out, you're going to be inundated with all this stuff that you.
Yes, they're knocking on our door.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How many are you getting in? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to have to see. You're going to have to make a definition, just like we're doing here. Yeah. And some people are not going to get that process.
Well, it's amazing when you think of shared revenue, right? Mm-hmm. And that proposal that just came out. There are already people that have been able to read that entire document and have an idea of what's coming. There are people that can do that. I can't do that. That is not me. I'm not going to sit there and read, you know, even a 60-page document and be able to explain it to you. But I see these guys do it all the time. And that's exactly it. Like shared revenue is going to have something in there with radios, 4 towns. Like we need to look at that before we start cutting off chunks of this to do that. And there are so many moving parts out there that the capacity we're at, we don't have any more capacity to look at it, and we're losing out on millions because of that. Is that accurate, Paul? Do we have any capacity to take a look at any of the other stuff that's coming?
No. 5+ months I've been here is I have not seen a county that is so short-staffed. And the case study did something, and the people are busting their butts more than I have seen in the private sector. I was there for 33 years, and we were trying to make a profit. So they don't necessarily see the goal that we saw in the private sector do more work. They do it because they want to work for the county or help the people. So one person, is that person going to do it, whether it's a he or she? Yeah. No. But if we don't add one, the rest of us aren't going to be able to take anything else on. We can't do what we're doing now, in my opinion. And we're, as I would say in my old job, we're putting up fire every single day. And when you're working at that pace and that type of attitude, you're not accomplishing a strategic plan. So if the board is going to put together a strategic plan, right now we're just trying to put out we're trying to get that blaze out in California down to a non-blaze,
like a fire hose.
But
I'm used to it.
So that's just my opinion on it. But you got to start with one, and I know there's enough argument from the board about just putting one in. But you got to start somewhere.
Where's your buck?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with a lot of the sentiment around the room. This has been a good discussion and debate. I guess I'll start with we have historic investments in infrastructure, some that we haven't seen in most of our lifetime sitting around this room in the bipartisan infrastructure plan. That's historic in itself. And then we have the Inflation Reduction Act on top of that, ARPA on top of that. And so, you know, I think that's a very valid point of a job description. How do you quantify this? Yeah, could one of these grants pay for that person? Absolutely. Hard to justify that. Well, the thing that I struggle with a little bit is that, you know, and John, the county executive office was this. Now it's this, you know, and you weren't there before to say, hey, you know what, this work was getting done before. Now we're adding more people. So that's what I struggle with here, is that the job was getting done before, and now we're adding people to the executive's office, but we have this historic investment in these things that hasn't been there before. If the county executive's telling us that we cannot get this done with the staff that we have, I would be supportive of this. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm curious on, is there any data? I go back to kind of 2 years, like here are all these grants that we could have, would have. Do we know how much is potentially to streamline? I see what you're saying. So maybe it's, here's the high priority. In the immediate need, we lost X amount of money because we didn't have anybody to apply for it. Or if you're going to be doing it, then you can't do X, Y, and Z. And let the board decide what do you, but yeah, is there data on how much is out there that maybe hasn't been applied for that makes this a little more quantifiable to say we've lost $4 million because we didn't have a person that could do it? I don't.
Gotcha, got 2 more ahead of you, so.
For an answer. Yeah, we certainly could go back. There's several grants that I can think of. There's a Tiger grant from the DOT, which is bike pass. So we could have, if we would have been ready and known about that funding opportunity earlier this year, this commission could have said, we're going to do the match. We're going to get the wheel wash funded with this. That's one grant. The infrastructure, the Inflation Reduction Act has credits. It's very, very hard for us to find fleet vehicles right now. There's fleet vehicle grants in there. We've done nothing. And it's not just the grant opportunities, I point out. There are direct funding opportunities. We get emails every week. Fill out this piece of paper, get this money, get the credit, get the voucher. The BEAD grant is that, which is by broadband. There's energy efficiency grant, which is all 70-some-thousand. 70-some-thousand. That's $100,000 right there, 2 pieces of paper that we fill out at the last minute. There was a $100,000 pilot, payment in lieu of tax for federal lands that we went into. There's the bipartisan infrastructure law. The way it's structured is not only are there competitive grants at the federal level, there's now competitive grants that they're going to announce at the state level, and there's going to be direct funding. We do not have a county engineer. We don't have an assistant commissioner. There's some of these infrastructure things that when I talk to US DOT, they said, well, there's apply for a capacity grant. Well, when are we going to do that? So some of these applications have come and gone. The National Association of County has a navigator of grants. Other opportunities, we've had a drug court in Winnebago County for 17 years. SAMHSA, which is they provide grants for treatment. We've never applied for a treatment grant with our drug court. There's discussion, you heard it on the board last night, for mental health court. There are implementation grants from the Department of Justice at the Fed level to do veteran courts, mental health courts. They will completely fund the implementation of that. Winnebago County has always used levy. We've used levy from day one of drug court. But most of the counties in the state of Wisconsin have used implementation grants, which are renewable up to 5 or 10 years, plus treatment dollars after that. That's another one. So there are opportunities after opportunities to do that. And so, you know, from the FFCRA, which was the second code, first code bill, second ARPA, to the federal budget, to now the state budget, there are these opportunities that other counties are getting. There's press releases every day that they're getting. The Neighborhood Improvement Fund was a government-only grant that came to us from the nonprofits. We didn't have anybody who caught that. Not in the health department, not in our office. It's a nonprofit that gave it to us. There are grants. Supervisor Buck monthly asks us, are we applying for this? Are we doing this? And, you know, we just hired a superintendent to help in facilities. So some of these, we're losing tons and tons of them that would be able to blend some of these applications, you know, that we'll look at. We can go look on the NACO website and say, oh, that is this grant. Why don't we maybe marry these sums together? The opioid funds, millions of dollars there. I mean, so there's tons of stuff that investment that we could grab and even use to fund the position that wouldn't always be Spirit. The BEAD grant, which is the broadband grant, it's $18,000 grant. We could probably use some of the hours here on broadband planning here. So some of those things we just don't have because we don't have a management analyst Racine County, Washington County, Waukesha County, Outagamie County, all of these other counties that are having, they have management analysts. We don't have any anywhere in the county, with the exception of the financial analyst, which is a little bit different of a role.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find the debate convincing, especially Mr. Buck's comments, actually. Thank you. And I believe we're being assured that this, if approved, will go to BNF, correct? And a comment about the county exec. I think if you compare the previous exec, Mr. Harris, and his responsibilities to the responsibilities of our current county exec, obviously it's increased. And ARPA money, how you just handle that, all these other funding sources do require more staff. I mean, originally I come in and I was not going to support this, but I think your point is valid. There are no levy dollars involved, I believe, except maybe the 10 grand. So I guess, and I said to other supervisors, I don't think I can support this because I don't want to keep adding to staff here. You got an ongoing cost there, but you're covering that with this interest money. So I guess I'm prepared to support it. You want a motion, Mr. Chairman, or do you want to defer for more comments? Okay, I'll bring the motion.
But I haven't seen anything from Mark Hebbett, other than you say you've worked on it with him. What Ethan had. I haven't seen any written material, any job description, any data on how much it really is going to cost. Do we have anybody out in the neighborhood that we can look to and say, okay, this is what they do and this is how much it costs, and when is he gonna, who is it gonna be and when is it gonna start and that kind of thing? I just don't feel that jumping at it without getting our hands around the actual definition of what this guy is going to do, or girl, it doesn't thrill me.
It's fleshing out.
It was, Ethan, you just impressed me. There's your guy. He knows how to do all that.
Yeah.
Now, and that's where you come in, because you have to make room, give him time to do what he's good at. I mean, just listen to him for the last 5 minutes. He just went on about all the stuff we lost. You know about it already.
You should come hang out in my office and listen to him and Mike Collard go at it with Paul. I mean, sometimes
You have to wear a black and white outfit to run that.
You do. No, I mean, it's amazing. I think we're lucky to have some really smart people working for Winnebago County that really have a good pulse on it. And when they tell me we need more people to pull this off, that we're leaving millions, that there's no way we can get to where we need to, I believe them. And again, this is not me making judgment on the past executive, but I think he just didn't want to make people angry. He wanted to just go along to get along. I'm willing to fight for my people. I'm willing to take arrows over and over again for that reason, to listen to the people that work for me and to guide them. And the Morris, to your point, the reason you don't see job description is because my people tell me that's not the role. That the role is policy and budget, and so I defend their right, because then it gives you the idea that you get to change what that job description is. And I really think the only person that you have the authority to change the job description is me. You direct me how to do operations. That's how we work together. You guys set the policy and the budget, and then it's my job in a relationship with you to make sure that those policies are getting done in the budget that you give me to do it from. I try to allow grace. Today, question was asked, Boris wants to come talk to the auditors. Do I allow that? Absolutely, I allow that. You know what I mean? Now, it took some time away from the audit being done, but I want you to have the transparency that you want to have, because I think it's important that you understand the information that you're asking for. Right?
Morris did not ask to come to talk to the auditors, they called me.
All right, well, and that's the relationship I want. You know, it's the relationship I want, that if you guys have questions, you want to come and look at these things. So as far as the job description, and would you like a job description by personnel and finance? I can make that happen. And I will talk to my people to make sure that they're okay with that. But again, this is me coming to bat, fight for my people, because I know what we need for what's best for Winnebago County.
Aaron?
Yeah, sir.
I will move to approve.
I think it's already on the
Yep.
floor.
I
Seconded.
put it on the table.
I just have
Okay.
one more.
That's not approval.
Okay.
One more thing. I didn't even touch on the green energy grants with, you know, if people want to, you know, even talk about that. I don't care. It's coming whether you like it or not. These vehicles are coming whether you like it or not. And there's other communities that are already investing in this. And I'll tell you, I rode an electric truck. I rode all over the place, and for counties and cities that don't drive very far, it's probably a darn good thing for something like that. That's all that money is coming. And if we're not going to apply for it, then Outagamie County and Dane County is going to apply for it and get it. So like I said, there's a lot out there, and I wish I would have been a little more prepared, because I do have quite a bit on this topic. So
I would approve it.
Second.
Motion made and second for the approval of this, with the understanding it goes to personal and finance. Possibly a job description. Any other discussion?
I have a
Roll.
second.
We got a second. Roll call, please.
Egan,
Aye.
Demo,
All right.
Buck,
I,
Abstain.
Ari,
Aye.
Warford,
Abstain.
Belter,
Aye.
Oswald. Aye.
That passes with 2 abstentions. Next meeting will be July 10th. I do have a question. It's not.
I said a week of July 10th. I didn't. Got it. Sorry.
I just looked at.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to make sure and get this question, because I know I asked the 2 of you this already, but I want to make sure it goes into the minutes. Any idea when the money for the towns are coming out? I know you're saying it might be a month or 2. Oh, they're looking for these.
Yeah, they're gonna get a similar thing to this probably within the next week or so, that they'll get this, and then I'll make sure, I'll meet with Paul and Mike. Mike's back on vacation, make sure we can do compliance. And like that. So now that I'm not working on an agenda in 4 or 5 business days, we'll work hard on that to get that wrapped up with the team. We want to go back to cab. Is that what
Go back there, or did you like this? We have no beam to look at here, that's the only thing.
I'll vote for this.
That's first for me.
For everyone? That's good for everyone?
So then
Coming from Menasha too, yeah, this works better, I think.
Just make sure Beth gets the memo.
So then I said the week of the 10th, so that's the 10th through the 14th.
That's can't do.
Yep, so the Thursday, I think typically be Thursdays, is that what you have been doing?
We had these.
We moved it for PNF. So July 13th is a Thursday. So Wednesday's the 12th, Fridays we've done in the past.
1 o'clock.
I know. There's no good time for me.
It's the third Tuesday. So it'd be the 18th.
July 13th.
No, yeah, 18th.
Make sure you gotta have anything that you want into Mary Ann by noon on the Monday before.
Yeah, but the Monday before
It's the 10th.
is the 10th.
Right.
And then the issue you have is the
Yeah.
Thursday before is the 6th
Yeah, you're gonna need more like the 4th or the 5th.
of July.
Put it on the 6th.
Well, yeah, July 4th.
Yeah.
No, the agenda to get it to the clerk.
Oh, the agenda for this, yeah, right, that we we can
We'll get it
do.
mailed out enough time.
But it's, if there's a resolution that needs to go to board,
You're gonna miss it.
we'll miss it. But
Why did we go to the end of June?
Yeah,
Either
end of
the
June.
end of
I
June.
may not be here the first couple weeks in July, so I'm trying to. find
It was merely staff time, so we can get a lot of the money that was already appropriated out. That's. My staff was asking for a pause and I'm trying to.
yeah, I mean, the 29th of June would be.
Right, did June work all right for everyone?
That's my birthday, but I suppose I can attend.
You can bring cake.
Yeah.
What's happened, Will?
Just as long as whoever sending out those packets, we get them out at least a couple days in advance. Very helpful.
29th, good.
The day before.
June 20th.
please.
Okay.
June 29th.
June.
June 29th, yeah. June 29th then.
Okay, now,
You'll schedule it for a year?
clean that up.
If it's available, yeah. ARPA.
We're staying here. This one. We don't have this yet, do we?
29th, all right?
1 o'clock.
Don't know if yours is available. I have no idea. I can't tell.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'm pulling it right
as
now.
long as the Zoom settings are set up in advance, we're cool.
And,
And nothing.
Yeah.
Just saying.
yeah,
I think what happened is I made her the host, so it probably took all of my other settings to her standard ones. It was, but on this one, I think that we had never done that before. We had never.
a lot worse.
Yeah. If there's nothing on the calendar, Laura, it's open, right?
You need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Yeah, I'm in the required room.
Adjourn, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned.
Franked up the TV like right here while I was working on.
Actually, part of Mike and team were the